Jeff Glass Ministries presents My Two Visions. Here's your host, Jeff Glass.
Hey everybody. Today I want to talk to you about visions, dreams and visions. Now, I've only had two visions in my entire life, so I'm going to tell you about these two visions in this video. What is a vision? A vision is when you see something and it's like you see it with your eyes, but it's really just an image that you see in your brain. It's like in your eyes inside, but not on the outside. A vision is generally for you. If you have a vision, then you see something. But the person standing next to you, they don't see it at all, because a vision doesn't exist in the earthly realm. A vision is something that exists in the spiritual realm, which is just as real as the earthly realm. It's just spiritual. So you'll remember in the Old Testament, it was Elijah or Elisha that had the school of the prophets, and he was outside and they were talking about facing an enemy and going into a battle. And the prophet said that there were many of God's chariots and warriors in the heavens over them, and they would win the battle. And his apprentice prophet, he couldn't see that. And so the prophet prayed and said, Lord, open his eyes that he can see. And his eyes were opened and he saw them. So 1 minute ago, he couldn't see them, and then he could see them. But the prophet saw them from the beginning. It's a spiritual vision that you can't see in the earthly realm. See, that realm had to be open to him before he could see it. So that's what a vision is. And similar to what we talked about on hearing Jesus' voice and God speaking to people in the New Testament, where he spoke out loud and everybody who could hear him heard him. So some people heard God speak and some people didn't. And some people heard God speak and some people heard just something else. Like people said it sounded like thunder. But other people heard words and sentences. So it's a matter of, you entering into the spiritual realm and being sensitive to the things of God, then you can see and hear. Jesus said, he that has ears to hear, let him hear, and he that has eyes to see, let him see. This first vision I had was many, many years ago in Fort Worth, Texas. I had my 68 Camaro that I talked about before in the other videos, and I was on the west side of Fort Worth, and I was driving along, and then all of a sudden my car wouldn't run very well. And so I stopped the car, and it was running fine. So I pushed on the gas pedal a little bit, and it went like this. It goes, ah. So it started to run, and then just acted like it was going to die, but then it never dies. It just sits there and idles. And it idles just fine. But I tried it again and again. Push on the gas pedal, starts like it's going to go, and then goes back down to idle. So I said to myself, well, my car can run, but it just doesn't take any gas or pull a heavy load. So I turned around and parked it facing uphill, slight uphill. Be easier to work on. And as I was sitting there in my car, I just asked God, what is wrong with this car? I can get out and fix it. What's wrong with it? And very quickly, just briefly, for like 2, maybe 3 seconds, I saw inside the carburetor, there's a little spring. It's only about 1/4 of an inch tall, little tiny spring. And so I saw inside that carburetor and the spring had just fallen over, like that. It's supposed to be straight up and down, but it fell over, and now the thing that pushes on it couldn't push. And God said, that's it. And I had taken, my carburetor apart before, so I knew exactly what God was talking about. And so right there on the side of the road, I took my carburetor apart very carefully because I didn't want to drop anything on the street. I might not find it. So lifted it off, and I had to take the carburetor apart. And so I took it apart, and sure enough, I lifted off this one part of the carburetor, and there's the little spring laying over like that. I just pushed it back so it's straight up and down, and then started putting it all back together. Now that whole thing took me it took a good 45 minutes to do that. And then right after that, put it all back together, got in my car, started it up, runs fine, just like before. So I step on the gas and it goes just fine and runs just fine. So God helped me out on the side of the road, stuck on the west side of Fort Worth in the afternoon, and I could fix it myself. So, I asked him what's wrong, and he showed me in a vision. Lasted 2 to 3 seconds. Another vision I had was later on, several years later, like 5 years later, something, 3 or 4 years later. I had just finished overhauling a car for Beverly and Bob Brandon. They were getting married, and Beverly was complaining that her car wasn't running so well. So I decided I would overhaul their engine as a wedding present. I believe it was either a Ford Falcon or a Mercury Comet, so that kind of a car, dark blue. So, like a 1964, so kind of old. And this was late 70s, so the car was at least 10, 15 years old. I had taken it all apart. I took the engine apart. I put new rings in it, took the head off. Of course, you had to take the head off to put new rings in. And then I took the head down to get it, the valves ground, and, the head like totally redone. And so put it all back together. Neat thing was all the guys knew I was doing this, and when I was putting it all back together the final day I worked on it, they all came over and were just wanting to see, if Jeff could take an engine apart and put it back together and have it run. So they're all standing around, and I started right up, and it ran great. And she was driving that thing for several months, and it wasn't too long, maybe 2 months, 3 months maybe, that she called me and said, my car won't run. I said, where is it? She said, it's over at the mall parking lot by a certain store, close to a certain store. And I thought to myself, there's no reason why that car shouldn't run. I rebuilt it. It's fine. Everything is fine. So what could be wrong? So I had to get somebody else to go with me because, we get it fixed and we have to bring 2 cars back, my car and her car. So I got this guy that I didn't even know that well in the men's dorm to come and go with me and fix the car and bring it back. But I had no idea, what was wrong with it. Could have been anything. But the thing was, we went over there about 6 p.m., 7 p.m. It wasn't dark, but it was going to get dark in an hour. And God told me as we drove through the parking lot at the mall, I saw the car up ahead, so I go driving toward it, and he told me, don't drive up to the car. Stay back about 50 feet. So I did. And I sat there looking at the car. My friend is sitting in the front seat right next to me. And I said, God, it's going to get dark pretty soon. I don't want to stay out here all night long trying to fix Beverly's car in the dark. We have no way to see things. Would you please show me what's wrong with this car? So I'm sitting there looking through the windshield at her car. But what I see is this. I see her car 50 feet away. But then the image I saw was me looking at the car, and suddenly the hood of the car is raised up, and I zoom in. See, I zoom in like a zoom lens would, like a camera would. Zoom in on the engine, keep zooming, right into the distributor area and right to a small wire. I mean, so this was like super zoomed in. A small wire that I know exactly where it should be attached, and it had come loose. It had come unattached. That's what I saw. Now, I saw that. The guy next to me, he didn't see that. All he saw was Beverly's car sitting in the parking lot, the hood closed. But I saw something entirely different. I turned to him and I said, and I don't know why I said this. I'm just admitting to you that this is what I said. I said, I just figured out what was wrong with that car. Now, I didn't figure it out. God showed it to me. So why did I say that? To elevate myself, to make myself look good. I took a miracle of God and then acted like, this was me figuring it out. So right after I said that to him, I said this. I said, I'm sorry. I didn't figure it out. God just showed me in a vision. I just saw a vision of what was wrong with the car. I could just tell you to go over there and how to fix it. And you could do it. And when I came here, I had no idea what was wrong with it. And he didn't seem too impressed about any of that. And so we got out. We went right over, opened the hood. I saw the wire, attached it. Car started right up, shut the hood. I said, okay, let's take it back. And I think he drove her car, and I drove mine. I said, go back to the dorm, and I'll take her car to them, and they can bring me back. So that's what I saw. I had a vision. Now that vision, obviously, it lasted maybe at least 30 seconds, maybe 45 seconds. So, when God shows you something, it doesn't have to be, an hour-long full-length movie. A vision is just something that He wants you to see. And it doesn't take that long. It's like walking by a room with the door open. As you walk by, you see some things, and you go on past the door. You don't see those things anymore. So it doesn't last long. So the best way I can describe a vision, like what I told you at the beginning of this video, would be a reference to the movie Field of Dreams. In that movie, maybe I'll have a clip of it for you, but in that movie, these two actors, went to a baseball game. Alex Jones was one of them, one of the actors. So they're sitting at this baseball stadium, professional baseball game. They're sitting there watching the game, and then suddenly they're looking at the billboard, the scoreboard, and it has ads all over, and it has a video type thing on it. And there was some video they were showing, like a picture with some writing on it. And then suddenly, the one actor sees another picture with other words on top of that one. Now you could still see the original, the material, the physical scoreboard with the video and the words they had up there. You could still see that. But superimposed over that was like on a translucent piece of paper on the board was a different bunch of words. And he heard a voice as well. And he turned to Alex Jones. He said, "Did you see that?" And Alex Jones goes, "See what?" He didn't see it. And that's the best example of a vision that I've ever seen in all of Hollywood's filmmaking with the special effects. It's a vision where you see it superimposed on top of the existing reality of this world, such as her car. Even though I saw the vision of her car with the hood open and zoom into the engine, at the same time I'm seeing that in the real world. Behind that, I can see her car still sitting there. So I'm seeing two images, one on top of the other. And that's the way a vision is. There might be other visions where you don't have that superimposed thing, where you just see the one thing that God is showing you. Who knows? I don't, because I've only had two visions, and they were both sort of the same, with the superimposed images lasting just a few seconds. So, God is still giving dreams and visions today. You might have a dream. You might have a vision. There's a verse in the Old Testament where God says, old men will dream dreams and young men will see visions. And I think it's referring to the end times. And we've heard stories of people all over the world, especially in the Middle East, among Muslim nations, where they have had dreams and see visions of Jesus. And there's one story where a whole group of men were meeting together, all Muslims, and one man says, I had this dream. He shares his dream, and he saw Jesus in his dream. And they're all Muslims, they're all men. And another man says, I had the same dream last night. I saw exactly that same thing. And then another one says, I had the same dream. One by one, they go around and shared and said they have all had that same dream. So in one night, God gave the same dream to all these men so that they would all be confirming that, yes, that is a real dream from God, because they all had the same dream at the same time. And they all saw Jesus. So that is happening all over the world. And praise God, that God is revealing himself to people, especially people who won't listen, who are adamant in their incorrect faith and in their wrong thinking and wrong believing, and he's correcting them. And if they won't listen to people, then in his mercy, he will step in and give you a dream or a vision. Those are the only two visions I've had, but I have had many dreams. So this will be a series of videos called Dreams and Visions, where I will just share some of my stories. Thanks for watching, and pay attention to what Jesus is saying to you and what he's showing you. Don't miss out. Surrender to him today. Why settle for anything less than what Jesus died to give you?